Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be taking a look at Mid Shadow again, and not much has changed overall, just a few number changes, a couple little adjustments. I am running the neutral Bab, I don't know, pronunciation, shocking. Anyway, it's just half decent. I like it on 6, I like it before the Ectoplay if you don't have Skeleton. As a one of, I think this card fits really nicely, and of course since I only have 2 Ectors, I think this is fine. The Enhanced 9, I haven't actually taken advantage of the spell, but it's still a good option to have, especially with that 3 extra damage to some of your cards. Other than that, I think mostly number changes. I am running Seraph of the Night at 2, I am also running Necroassassin at 3 and Catacomb at 2 on my 4 slot, which I found to be reasonably good. I haven't had too much trouble with that. So far, 5-game win streak, 0 losses with this deck. I'm really happy with how it's performing, so we'll take a look and get right into some games. So first up, we're playing against Portal. Portal is a pretty reasonable matchup against Shadow, I think. I personally haven't had too much issue, but I've found about 10% of current Portal players are what I would consider good Portal players, and the rest are not that great. Especially mostly with the deck building and just playing them in order, you can quite easily tell who's a good Portal player and who's not based on about turn 4 or 5 when they start really, playing cards. But this Shadow deck still does quite well against them, especially for any basic player, I guess I would say. You don't need a great knowledge of anything to really run this Shadow deck. As long as you've got the cards, you can just throw them out and continually dominate the board. So we get to hit for 2, which is always good. I find being a little bit aggressive in the early game is fine. Being able to Gourmet Emperor out is always a substantial play because it combos so well against basically everything except Haven, which fortunately I haven't had to really face with this deck yet. At least not a Haven that really dominated me. So it's really good to get Necro Assassin when you've got Carrot. Being able to use both is quite substantial together. I do end up using the Demon Eater for its draw though, which I think is a fine play. Getting those draws is always going to be good. Plus we are going into turn 5, which is going to be pretty important. To our opponent, not really too much. I'm not a fan of Hamlin personally. I really can't get behind that card much. Maybe if there's a deck that can feature it a little better, sure. But right now, I just don't know why Portal would really want to run Hamlin when pushing so many early artifacts in your deck really waters down your draw and makes it harder to get what you need before turn 6. Ultimate Carrots, awesome, I can set that up, I can have some nice trades. We'll be looking at a pretty steady game here, especially with Skeleton Prince coming up at turn 6 if we so choose to play it. They are just stacking the deck. This is where you can kind of tell the difference. I mean, if on turn 5 your opponent literally just stacks the deck with 4 artifacts after they've already stacked it with other artifacts, I start to wonder whether it was really worth the hassle of stacking so many cards in your deck. Because if you haven't got Des Ex yet, you're going to screw yourself for draw consistency, and that's a huge risk. Especially if you don't have a decent way to mill out your deck. I suppose you could probably run Chronos, but I think Chronos is too late game to actually get an advantage out of. But who knows? Who knows? We've got Icarus. I like Icarus. I think that's a solid Portal card. This deck that I'm running, Shadow, is just really, really good. I can't see a real issue with it at all. I mean, the single Aisha is enough to close out games a lot of the time. You can quite easily just flood. I love Skelly Ring, that's just awesome. Skelly Ring is great. So I do stack the board. Why? Because looking at Portal, clearing the board's important, keeping stuff on board is also important. So being able to play these zombies and just swarm the board when you don't have Thane or Hector in hand is awesome. We are both out of evolves now though too, so that's actually quite good for me because I pretty much have advantage without the evolves effects right there. And we should be able to push for 10 Necromancy soon, which means Aisha is actually going to have a chance to go face against Portal for 10 damage if we get that far. And next turn is going to be an absolute floodstorm. Skelly Ring plus whatever followers we want to play is going to be absolutely crazy. good setup for what bad, which is good. And of course we have Odal Black Swan, we've got the Lyriel, the Necro Assassin, all those sort of cards, especially if we can get quite lucky with running a Swan play. So they do go for the trade, no real concern to me. Trade's good, but not that good, I don't think. Okay, we get that play out now, mainly because I want that 3 damage trade and a 2 damage to face, getting him closer to being dead to the Aisha. Especially when we've already got 4 damage on board, so they basically are forced to clear, which isn't hard for Portal. But for me, it just means they got to waste more resources on my board, while I'm pretty much just setting up. So I do need to also get a little lucky with these sort of plays. I mean, if they played something just like scarily dominant, I could be in some trouble. Especially with these ancient artifacts. Super annoying cards. Okay, so this is where things really get interesting. I decide to go with the Black Swan first, so I can play the Necro Assassin on the 2/2. I now have a 1 in 4 shot at hitting that Swan, which I managed to do perfectly. That was my best option. If I'd missed it, sure, I could just trade. It wouldn't be the worst thing, but if I had hit either of those low cost ones, it would have been basically worthless of a play. So I actually got exactly what I wanted, and it was a huge risk to do so. All we need is 2 damage to stick to this board, but that's probably not going to happen.
It's so quiet.
Lucky for us, we did get Thane. Comboing that with Demon Eater. Absolutely crazy. We're able to get that 2 damage in right now, and then set up for the Underworld next turn so we can drop it and go 10 to face. Luckily, I haven't seen them really play any wards for the deck yet, for their artifacts. So I know I'm pretty safe in that regard. They do only have 1 card, so I don't see too much happening. I'm really not a fan of that card. Not now anyway. Maybe, like I said, same as Hamlet. If there's another deck structure, maybe. But a 5 cost, basically do nothing, isn't fun. I mean, getting an artifact, I don't think is quite worth it. So we get plenty of damage, more than enough to win this game, and close out the first game of this video.
Your story ends here.
Straight to the face. The next deck we get to play against is Rune. As I mentioned in previous videos, this is quite a popular deck, Rune. It's usually not too great to fight Rune with Shadow, but I think this matchup for me is normally pretty fine. Worst case is that you get completely cleared without being able to play anything yourself. But as long as they don't literally board clear you 3 times or 4 times in a row, you can normally pull the game back to you. And Aisha really helps in this matchup. Being able to get 10 burst damage is absolutely crazy against Rune. So Belenus, again, perfect play. I could have also went with Peacock. Peacock would have been great as well, just because Scullering on 3 is perfect. I think Scullering is so much better than Chimera at this point, because getting those extra bodies, I mean, Chimera was what, basically 3/1/1s? Scullering is literally resummon a 2/2, basically, for every 2/2. Plus you get the last word triggers off them, so you're getting an extra last word version of that follower. It's just maddening how much value that card has in it, especially when played on curve, because turn 5, going first, getting that evolve with Scullering is perfect. So I do decide to go aggressive, push the board. I've got another Scullering to set up next turn. I can also drop Soul Squasher to kill whatever they evolve, and I get whatever pops out of that Scullering after they trade here.
Figure out my tricks yet?
Which, most likely, knowing my luck, is going to be half decent.
Finally a break. You're mean.
I am Belenus the Shining.
Alright, so we did get the Belenus. We get to use the Soul Squasher, which will proc these amulets to disappear.
Come gather round.
The Earth Sigils are normally a pain. Do decide to save the Evolves. I have got Skeleton Prince if they do something crazy this turn to clear me out. They do push more damage though.
Long now.
They also make that Magic Illusionist vulnerable to my board, so that's fine with me, I guess.
Feeling hungry?
And throw their own Goblin. So now it's just trade City, work out what we can do. I only really need 2 things here to actually trade for Skeleton Prince to be good.
It's the greatness that is all.
And we get Scullering next turn. I mean, what can go wrong with that?
Perfect. I was just getting bored.
If I get lucky, my Scullering would pull the Peacock, which would be perfect, but Belenus is still good enough
Unbelievable.
in the next turn, mainly because I could evolve the Peacock and basically just use it to then draw heaps of cards.
This ends here.
So, another Halo Golem. I'm really have no concern about those. Ceres actually helps in the rune matchup here quite a bit, just because that healing is so good for this matchup in particular. I'm not a big fan of Ceres against Dragon, or even sometimes Portal, depending. Do decide to use the Lyrial trade here instead. Probably not the best idea, but it did the job. Was able to trade. I mean, it leaves me fairly vulnerable to a complete board clear, but the odds of them having that in 2 cards is reasonably low. And if they decide they want to play Rat, well, I mean, I can just roll that face pretty much the whole way. Rat actually no, Rat probably would have killed me if they were able to rat me. Now I think about it, I would have been board locked. I can't remove my own board because I don't have any spells to do so. And all they would have had to do is literally wait 2 turns, wouldn't they? Oh no, maybe I would have killed them because the rats... 2 lots of rat turns for 5 damage, and I would have only had taken 1 lot of damage from them to start with, would probably put them at lower than me, so that would have been an interesting play if they could. Otherwise, we dealt with them pretty well. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I did keep it to 2 games because some of these videos have been going quite long. I know some of you enjoy them, but I can't have them go all too long, so I'm quite happy with the length of this one. Anyway, this won't be the last time we see this deck. I'm sure there'll be a few alterations here and there as the meta continues to grow and change over the first month. Look out for any events at the Shadow Nexus Discord. You can go check that out. It's always in the description below, usually right at the top, so you can get to it really easily. Also, the deck list will be in the description below, along with all my other links. You can check out my Patreon or anything else that you might need. So, again, I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.